So, Jeanette, tell us what your absolute perfect day in Utah looks like. Let's say you can
Okay.
teleport, you only have 24 hours. How would you structure the perfect day?
My perfect day in Utah would definitely begin early with time out on one of our beautiful trails, and I live near one. So right now I do more walking than running, but however I'm out there, I'd love to be moving on the trail, watching the sun come up and its rays of light crawling across the valley before it hits me up on the trail. Definitely start there. Then I'd go back home. I'd be awake before the rest of my family, come back home and spend a little bit of time with them, get them off to their jobs in school, and then I would just start cranking on the projects that I love. I mean, honestly, that's part of my perfect day is doing the things that I love in my career and in my community. And that evening I'd probably have dinner with my family and then show up to another community event to support some initiative of someone who's raising money for something or raising awareness for something, and come back to sleep, sit in my backyard. We have a little creek back there, and I would just enjoy nature and the birds, breathe in, breathe out, and crash hard asleep at 11
Mm,
o'clock.
this sounds like a perfect day. And you just reminded me, I remember a few years ago you did a Dancing with the Stars event in Utah for a fundraiser. How was that? Was it fun?
Yes. Oh, my problem is I say yes to stuff that I really have no business saying yes to, and that was one of those. It was a fundraiser. They originally came to me and said, who would be some fun people in the community who could do this dance? So I gave them ideas. They went and called them. Those people said no. So then they came back to me and they're like, how about if you do it? I'm like, okay, I guess. I'm not a dancer. I'm just someone willing to try and make a fool of myself. But anyway, I got paired up with a dancer who had been on the show, Dancing with the Stars, and we had practices, totally out of my element, wore a dress from the show. But the thing is, the day of, I was nervous. I'm like, I don't even know if I remember all the steps. And the day of, I'm like, I don't care. I'm just going to have fun. I'm going to be the smiliest person out there. I'm just going to have fun. I'm not going to worry about what I look like or whether I remember the dance. And it actually ended up being just a total blast. And I'm so
Mm.
happy that I did it, that I said yes to something that I wasn't going to nail. I wasn't, no, no one's going to call me to be on the real show at this point. This was just a fun community thing. And honestly, the crowd was great. They were cheering for me because I think they were thinking, wow, good for her. Glad it's her and not me. And so they were fun and energetic. And
Oh,
like,
okay.
like most things in my life, I end up glad I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what dances did you do? Just out of curiosity, as a
So
former love of ballroom dance person, what dances did you do?
So it was just one dance because that was
Mhm.
all I could handle, and it was to Taylor Swift's "Shake It Off,"
Oh,
and it was a swing. So anyway, we it was just fun. But like he flipped me over his shoulder, I spun on the ground. I did some things that a almost 50-year-old person probably wouldn't be expected to do. Someone who's not a dancer, but honestly, it was just fun, and it was to raise money for Charity Vision. So it was
mm,
cool.
so good. Okay, so Jeanette, you started your career in media and publishing early in high school. You were the editor of the school newspaper, The Buzz. You even won some awards. Tell us more about that experience in high school.
So it even started in elementary school. My older sister played teacher and I would play journalist. So we'd have these little pretend things going on in the basement. And I did a little newsletter for her school and I did a newsletter for the neighborhood. And I just was really drawn to that idea of storytelling and documenting. And I played weather forecaster. And then in junior high, I was on the yearbook staff. And then in high school, we had a really good newspaper. So I was on that and was the editor my senior year. And my first airplane ride was my senior year. We won one of the top newspapers in the country and got to go to Columbia University in New York to pick up the award. So that was huge for me. Never been on a plane, never been to New York, and back there to pick up this award. And it was just phenomenal and really kind of a predictor of my life in a lot of ways, of just firsts, doing things for the first time, and having doors open because of journalism and because of my excitement and I think work ethic to plow forward. So the buzz, I think naturally I'm kind of an introverted listener, observer, but I've had a lot of leadership opportunities where it's really stretched and grown me. And being the editor of the Buzz was maybe one of the first times where I'm like, all right, I'm in charge of these 30 people, and some of them have way bigger personalities than I do. And how am I going to do this? How am I going to command their attention? How am I going to set out a vision? And that prepared me for the next thing, which prepared me for the next thing. So
Mm.
those high school years were really formative for me. And then I went to college and stayed in journalism. It became my key to really everything, my
Yeah.
key to paying
Mm.
for school and my career. And it put me in, starting in high school and college and on, in the offices and homes of really interesting people. And my pass to get in was that I was going to write about them, so
Mm.
it built my network that
Mm.
way. But yeah, it did start in high school as
Mm.
a teenager.
Mm. What state did you grow up in?
Idaho.
Idaho. Okay, like
Yep, so I was in
southern.
Idaho Falls,
Okay, got it.
southeastern Idaho.
Okay, love
Yeah.
it. Um, so when you were 10 years old, say, and people asked you what you wanted to be when you grew up, did you know that you wanted to be a journalist?
I did. I thought I would be on TV more.
Hmm.
I thought that would be that those were the journalists that I could see at that
Right,
point.
right.
And so I thought that would be my path. I worked at the local TV station in Idaho Falls in high school as a camera operator. So I would be there at the 6 and 10 o'clock news, running the camera and giving
Uh-huh.
the signals, and it was exciting. I didn't meet any women in that at that time that I really wanted to pattern my life after. I In broadcast, it's a hard. It can be done, and there are many good examples. But
Mhm.
in my sphere, I didn't see women who were also having families and having good balance, and they were traveling around to small towns, building their career, and not getting paid a lot. And I lost a little bit of my excitement for broadcast from working at that tiny little TV station, but it was helpful because it reframed me to be like,
Yeah,
okay, maybe print journalism is a better fit for the whole part of me that I
yeah.
wanted to create.
Interesting. I like how you said you're working as a camera operator and you reframed. I like how you did that.
Oh.
Um, and it is interesting too. One of the first books that I wrote was called Dare Dream Do. And one of the things I talked a lot about is dating dreams. And so one of the things
I
that
love
you
that.
you did when you were working as a camera operator is you were dating that dream, and you're like, oh, okay, maybe I don't want to, I want to be a journalist, but maybe I don't want to be on camera. Maybe what's the other path that I can take?
That's exactly what it was, and I love the way you described that. I was definitely dating the dream,
Hmm.
and I learned things, and I'm so glad for that.
Hmm.
I'm so grateful that I had that experience. I loved a lot of things about it, and being a print journalist, actually, I have had a lot of chances to appear on
Yeah.
TV shows, just one-offs,
Uh-huh.
enough to kind of scratch that itch, I guess. But I've never regretted the reframe
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
that I did at that
Mm.
time.
Um, so who were some of your early mentors? Some people, one or two people that influenced you and how your life is today. Who comes to mind?
So one of them was the two older people actually in my church congregation. One was the organist, and just classic older woman organist, and I played the piano, and she was like, you down there, I'm going to teach you to play the organ so that you can fill in for me. And I probably was a little resistant, but she taught me. And in our lessons, she also became a mentor for life. So she would want to know, okay, what are you loving about school? And we'd talk about dating, we'd talk about all these things. Eventually, when I did start our magazine in 2000, she was our first subscriber, and I'm getting emotional even thinking about that. The magazine was in Utah and she's in Idaho, but just her support of me in all ways really showed up in that $10 subscription check that she wrote before the first issue came out. She just wanted to be so supportive, and that was so meaningful, way more meaningful to me than I think she even realized.
Hmm.
Another person in that same time of life, an older gentleman, one day in church handed me a Women in Business magazine. It's kind of out of the blue, like you don't usually hand people magazines at church and stuff, but he handed me that.
No.
And two messages that it gave me. One was that he had been paying a little bit of attention to who I was and who I was trying to be. And two, it gave me this feeling of like, and he approves of that idea of a woman being in business, which wasn't a message I felt like I was getting from everyone in my life and every perspective. But I thought, you know, he thinks that that would be a really cool and acceptable path for me to be a woman in business.
Mm.
And so those small moments actually made a big difference. Of course, there were other people, journalism advisors, and people actually in the industry that were, of course, really, really shaping. But some of those key moments from those
Mhm.
people who weren't naturally in my career path helped form my belief and confidence in myself that were really key. And so I've tried and hope I've done that for a few, especially young women along the way, of just cheering them on in their
Yeah.
pursuits.
It's interesting as you're talking, I'm having this, you introduced this image of the camera and the framing, and it's interesting as you think about the woman who was the organist and then this other gentleman who handed you that magazine. In both instances, they were saying, I see you.
Mm-hmm.
I see who you are.
Yes.
I see who you can be. I
Right.
think it's valuable. They were showing you a future version of yourself.
That's absolutely true.
It's
It's
beautiful.
absolutely true. And they, in some ways, they were seeing it more than I was. I was
Mhm,
still working through my limiting beliefs and my own
mhm.
confidence issues. And so to see how they saw me helped me to build a little bit of confidence and belief in myself.
Yeah.
And that's happened other times in my life too. When I've sensed how other people see me, it has helped me expand how I can see myself. Even
Yeah.
though I feel like I'm very, I don't know, I feel like I have an internal compass of like, okay, I can figure out who I am and how to do it.
Mhm,
But those moments of other people adding to that are,
mhm.
it's significant. We really
Yeah.
do need each other in this journey.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a gift. It's a true gift when
Hmm.
people do that. All right. So you get a master's in mass communications and media studies in 1997. 3 years later, you start the Utah Valley magazine. So I think maybe I have a little bit of an idea where that vision came from based on one of the mentors you just described. But give us some more detail of. I mean, that was a pretty gutsy thing to do. I'm going to start a
Oh,
magazine. Tell us more.
totally gutsy. And I was 25 when we started the magazine, so really young. I, going through school and finishing my bachelor's and master's, I think what I envisioned was working for a magazine, working for Forbes, working for Fortune, working for Inc., and being and writing about business. I did a business minor, thinking I'd love to write about business and entrepreneurs. That's so cool. And then in 1997, the same time I was finishing my master's degree, I became a mom, and I was working at the Deseret News downtown Salt Lake, simultaneously finishing my master's and working at the Deseret News. And I worked there till I went into labor. And, I'm like, I'll be back in 6 weeks. And what happened was, I went home with this brand new baby, work from home and hybrid, that wasn't a thing yet. So it was like, if I go back in 6 weeks, it's traveling to downtown, the commute time, being down there, a 10-hour shift or whatever. And I couldn't get my head around it. I love this baby so much. I didn't have family around. I didn't feel like I had this solution or desire to leave him. And so that's when the entrepreneurial light started turning on. As I was like, how can I do it all? Which is also a theme for life. How is there any way to play this Tetris game and fit this in? And creating my own publication became the solution that I had in my mind to be able to do that. And that if I was in charge, if it was my thing, then I could work from home and I could get up early and I could stay up late and I could be in charge of this rather than having, my set shift as a copy editor at the Deseret News. And so that's when the entrepreneurial bug kicked in. We did a few smaller projects in the 98 to 2000 frame, but working towards starting Utah Valley Magazine, our first magazine in 2000. By that point, I had a second baby. So I now had two babies, a 2.5-year-old and a newborn, and launched the magazine as a 25-year-old in
Mm,
Utah. But really, it was the motherhood, it was that change that
yeah.
reframed, going back to that word again, it
Mhm.
reframed what success looked like to me. And that flexibility piece became really big for me. The control of my own schedule, that was some autonomy. So that's when this new version of me came to be.
So, Jeanette, I'm wondering, so this is now 27 years ago, and I'm just wondering, What was the ethos at that time? Was because I can't remember off the top of my head, was entrepreneurship a big thing? It seems like it was still a little bit early days for people, everybody saying, I want to become an entrepreneur. And I'm wondering, as you thought about doing this, do you remember one or two self-limiting beliefs that you had to wrestle with in order to do this?
Yes. So the ethos was not entrepreneurial.
I thought.
At least that's not what I was feeling in Utah, and in Idaho. So I kind of feel like those two states both shaped who I am. And the ethos was very much stay at home mom. And that
Mhm.
was the ethos of my family, my mom and aunts. I'd never known any of them to have careers. My friends' moms were all at home. Some of them had part-time jobs at the fabric store or something, but nobody was all out, building a
Career.
career.
Mhm.
And it was very much like focus on getting a lifetime job. So you go to college and then you work for a big company for 30, 40 years. Those were the stories that I was hearing. And as I finished my business minor and had speakers come in, all of whom were male, by the way. The
Mhm.
lecture series was 100% male. It was working at big companies. It wasn't like I started this in my basement kind of thing. Those weren't the stories that were being celebrated. So it felt very foreign to me and to everyone around me that we would try to do this. But there was something in me that was like, but this is the way, this is the option. And I also felt like I could live on almost nothing. Having grown up in a big family in Idaho, having been a college student, not too far in the recent past, I'm like, this doesn't have to like be huge. This just has to, you know,
Enough.
put some groceries, in my cart and on my table. And so my goals and what success looked like to me didn't have to be,
Mhm.
multi-million dollar anything. It just had to be like a replacement for my Deseret News income, but
Mhm.
to be able
Mhm.
to do
Mhm.
it at home. So it definitely was different. And this is before social medias. This is before texting. This is before it was common, before social media. So all of these things, these platforms that have come have helped this gig economy and have helped women, have helped
Right.
entrepreneurs, because you have so many ways to get the word out and to dabble with the business. You can start an Instagram account in 30 seconds
Mhm.
and have a business. But back then it just seemed so much harder to put a stake in the ground and be like, this is the name of what I'm doing, and this is, this, you're my audience, and here's, you're going to hear from me. I'm going to put together a direct mail piece and I'm going to send it to you, at a great expense. So there were a lot of barriers then, but I
Yeah.
think my one of my biggest barriers was in my mind of just like, is this okay? Is this right? Is this going against my beliefs and what I've been raised, that my greatest purpose is to raise my children, because I did believe that as well. So it was that moment when I became a mom, and I finished my master's degree and I became a mom, and I was like, whoa, my worlds are colliding. Because my professors had been very, very supportive about my educational journey, and always wanting me to be their assistant on different projects and things. So I was succeeding there, and then having the baby, which I'd grown up knowing that was going to be my purpose. And when those worlds collided, I was like, I feel like nobody prepared me for this moment
Mhm.
of having so much passion for this, but having so much passion for this. And do I have to choose one or the other, or can they go together? And I feel like I don't even know who to talk to about this. I don't, has anyone, I'm sure other people obviously had faced that, but I hadn't talked to anyone who had. I hadn't had someone help mentor me through that clash of those big pieces of me. So I feel like I did that mostly on my own, if I'm going to be
Mhm.
honest, at that
Mhm.
time of life, on my own, and with some help from above, of just like, what is okay to do, and
Mhm.
I didn't
Mhm.
go back to the Deseret News. That did feel like the right decision, but then I also felt a little bit lost until we got on the ground with what we were doing.
Mhm.
I felt like, man, like, I felt like I didn't even have anything to contribute to conversations when my husband would come home from his work and school, and when I'd see other people. It's like, I don't know, there's not a lot going on. I held a baby all day, like,
Uh-huh.
I was reframing again. Well, that's our theme
Yeah.
for the day, but
Yeah.
reframing who I was and what I liked to talk about and think about. And once
Mm.
I started the business and had that piece of me again, it was like I came back to life. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
And I still, and I have 5 kids, and I feel like if you talk to them, for the most part, they feel like I was a present mom, and they also had a present dad. And I feel like for the most part, I did get to be the mom I wanted to be,
Mm,
and build a
mm,
business along the way.
mm. So interesting. So the word that's coming to mind, and I'm sure you're not going to be surprised at all when I say this word, is that you are a disruptor. Because
Yes.
one of the first tenets of being a disruptor is that you play where no one else is playing. You take on market risk, and so you have been a disruptor both from a personal standpoint of like, how do I blend work and family and put these two together, and especially when the narrative was not to do that. So there's a disruptor in that regard, but also disruptor in being an entrepreneur and in creating something that hadn't been created, and what did that business look like. And it's just really fun to hear you describe that, as well as the emotional aspect of doing something new, where you're just like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what this
Mhm.
looks like. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know how I'm going to figure this out. And I want to make sure that I'm good with God in all of this. Like, how do I put all this together? So it's just very, very fun to hear you share that story.
Well, thank you. And you've given words, you've given a lexicon to the process that I was going through. And
Mm.
I recently disrupted myself again this year, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And so I've lived the concepts that you've described. Um, my light just went off in my office. But anyway,
Do you want to turn it back
um,
on? Do you need to turn
I
it back
think I
on?
will really
Yeah,
quick.
go ahead. And I'm going to let our cat in. Oh, no, she's gone. Yeah, I do want to come back to your most recent disruption. So we will get to that. So, um, okay. So if we open up a copy of the Utah Valley Magazine today, what's in there? What are we going to see? What kind of stories are you interested in? Just talk to us about what are the contents.
Right. So Utah Valley Magazine comes out 6 times a year, and it's all about people, and it celebrates Utah Valley, so the area south of Salt Lake. It's called Utah Valley, and we've wrapped our arms around that part of the world. And there's so many dynamic things going on there. 2 big universities, Silicon Slopes, a lot of tech companies, network marketing companies. There's great outdoor activities and opportunities there, recreation, and so the magazine celebrates the people behind all of those things I just listed. So the cover story is almost always a person, because we love to tell stories, behind the scenes stories of someone, get to know them, really get to know their childhood, get to know what makes them tick. We have some regular features people love. Once a year, we do celebrity lookalikes, which is kind of a funny thing, but everyone looks forward to it every year. And we also go on one of the local TV stations with some of our lookalikes. One year we had a Jay Leno lookalike, and Jay Leno invited that person on his show. This was a while ago, right? But uh, fun things have happened like that
Mm.
through the years. We feature doctors. So at times we've surveyed all the doctors. If you were going to send your family member to a doctor, who would you choose? And then we list that. We have restaurants in there, the new restaurants, things to try, entree to try. We do high school students who will change the world. So every year, our graduation issue, we pick one high school student from each school and highlight them as someone who's going to change the world in one way or another. So we have these regular features that are once a year, but then every issue, it just you'll see someone you know. That's
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
the things I love that people say, because Utah Valley has doubled in size since we've started our
Mhm.
magazine, but still it feels small enough that when you open the magazine, you're going to see someone you know and
Mm,
learn something about them
mm,
that you didn't know before.
mm, mm.
And
Have you tracked any of those high school seniors that are going to change the world? Do you go back
yes,
and
so
do
we do a 10 year. At 10
Uh-huh.
years we track him down again.
Yeah.
And so I mean, sometimes when we contact them, they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I've done much. I'm still working on my PhD," or whatever. But it's fun to do a check-in and show an
Mhm.
updated picture, and some of them have done what they predicted they would do, and of course some have not. But it's been meaningful. And when we work on that section, I always think about the parents and also the junior high students reading that
Mm,
as they get ready for high school, and as the parents get ready to raise high schoolers. Like, what are the things?
Mm.
what's the advice, what's the approach, and of course a lot of it you could guess. It's like, be friendly to others, get involved, but
Yeah.
other things are more specific, and I
Mm.
see it as a parenting manual and as a high school survival manual. And so I
Oh,
think it's been helpful for the community, and we've heard that, and that's brought me a lot of satisfaction.
yeah. Mm. So is there an edition of the magazine that you're like super proud of, or a specific story that really sticks out in your mind?
Yeah, so our sister publication is Business Q. So we
Mhm.
have this. So Utah Valley Magazine is more community oriented, and Business Q is, of course, business. And that's been the one that's been my favorite project to work on, because I feel like it's been my continual MBA to
Mm.
interview and write about entrepreneurs. And in 2008, we started what we call the UV50, which was patterned after Inc. 500. So UV50, name our 50 businesses, top 50 businesses in Utah County. And we do a issue about them with all their stats and info. And then we hold an event where they get their recognition in person as well. And that's my favorite one that we do every year, because I feel like it tells the story of our economy, which is
Mm.
also largely our cultural story as well, because you can see the types of companies that grow. And we were heavy tech, we're now more consumer products. You can see the evolution of the
Mm.
top companies, and that's my favorite project to work on. We're in the middle of it right now for this fall. My team's doing largely the large lifting now at
Yeah.
this point, but I love that.
Mm.
As I look back on Utah Valley, more of the community based, people based articles. One of the issues that comes to mind was actually our 20th anniversary issue, which was in 2020. So we
Mhm.
started Utah Valley Magazine in 2000, so it's always easy to
Well
tell how
done.
old it is. Yes, I had a kid that year too, so you always know how old she is.
Yeah.
Um, so we did our 20th anniversary issue, and it was also simultaneous with COVID, obviously,
Mhm.
and I went through a cancer journey in 2020. So I was very reflective at this point on our magazine hitting the 20-year mark, the world in turmoil, my own health in the balance. I mean, I was fine, but it was something to go through.
Mhm.
So for that issue, I went back to every cover. We showed every cover we had done in the 20 years, and I told a backstory of the photo
Wow.
shoot, usually of that person, and something funny that happened or interesting or did you know kind of thing from the photo
Wow.
shoot. That was really, it was important for me. I think people enjoyed reading it as well, to hear just all the hard work, and oh, this photo shoot took 3 different times, and it got rained out the first time, whatever it was. And that was a moment where I'm like, even if we didn't publish another magazine, I feel like we did it. We did 20
Mhm.
years. We documented it all. We wrapped it up with a bow,
Mhm.
and that issue came out about 3 weeks after I did my surgery to take out my
Yeah.
thyroid and some lymph nodes here, and so it was just this moment of like, I am going to take a minute, and like, instead of being so obsessed about the next thing, I'm
Mhm.
going to talk about what has been, and
Mhm.
celebrate that, and wrap it up,
Mm.
and look at the lessons learned and things. So that
Mm.
was really, really fun. My staff talked me into putting myself on the cover, which I had never done and never would have done. Oprah started her magazine in 2000 as well, and she was always on the cover, as she should be. But anyway, that was my little Oprah
Your
moment of being
homage to
on the
Oprah.
cover. Yes,
Um,
yes.
so let's talk just briefly about building a staff, especially a writing staff. Talk to us about and what does your staff look like? Are they contractors? Just sort of the nuts and bolts of the people side of a magazine.
Yeah, so we largely use full-time writers, and I've been lucky to have a lot of longevity on my staff. So the editor in chief now, who works under me producing our publications, he's been there 22 years,
Wow.
and so basically from the start, and then other writers as well. The only contract writers that we use at this point are former full-time employees,
Mm.
and because they were with us, they know the cadence, they know the style, they know the tone. I'm really comfortable with them representing us as they go
Mhm.
out in the community to do interviews and photo shoots. And for right now, that is what it looks like. In the past, we had a really robust news website at one point that we don't do. At that point, we needed a lot more
Mhm.
writers, and so
Mhm.
I had a different philosophy at that point. So longevity is important to me. We all edit each other's things. Everybody reads everything that goes in the magazine. I think that's helpful for a few
Mhm.
reasons. It makes the writing better, but it also makes future writing better as you notice the things that you love about each other's writing.
Yeah.
Through the years, we've at different meetings, we've been like, everybody bring a good piece of writing, and we're going to just analyze a sentence and
Huh.
a paragraph, and we're going to look at this one word choice. And because words are delicious, just phrasing is so beautiful. And so I love taking time to really look at that, and everybody bring an example. I think that's really helpful. Of
Okay, wait,
course,
before you go on. So what's a piece of writing that you've read lately that was delicious?
well, I just got back from New York and I saw Hamilton. That's the first thing. It is so well written. The word plays, that how he takes a word and it means something else in the next
Uh-huh.
sentence. I
Uh-huh.
just can't even. Oh, that's so beautiful to me. I think that's awesome.
Mm,
So that's the most recent piece of
mm,
literature that I really really
mm,
loved.
mm,
Even fiction writing, which is not journalistic writing. But one thing that I love is just the way they can just write a phrase that means so much, a description that means so much.
mhm,
Humans of New York is an account I
mm,
love. They can tell a story, and their words are just really efficient.
mhm.
They don't take a whole sentence to be like, this person has 3 kids. They work that in somehow, this
Yeah.
into another sentence about something else. And so I just love efficient writing. We never have enough space to put in everything that we
Yeah.
want in a printed publication. And so efficiency, how can you tell the most information in the smallest amount of space, is always cool to me.
And it's interesting too because I've noticed. So Alex Turk, our producer, he has been doing a lot of fiction writing, and I've noticed that when he writes, his writing improved because he'd been doing, and he was already a great writer, but it improved
Mhm.
when he was in that discipline of writing fiction. Have you noticed that when people are focused on fiction, their nonfiction writing gets better?
Yes, because it's all words, and
Hmm.
it's people, whether it's fictional people or real people. So
Hmm.
my daughter, who's a BYU grad, she's one of our writers at the magazine, and she has a real interest in fiction, and she's writing a fiction piece, reads a lot of fiction,
Hmm.
which is not me.
Uh-huh.
I That's not me at all. But that she brings that taste to her journalistic writing, where
Hmm.
she has a lot of just fun flair and really descriptive wording and things. And sometimes I trim that down. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, that's a little much. But like, she puts it on the page, and then between her creativity and my journalistic efficiency, I think we arrive at a pretty good place.
Mm. Is that fun to work with your daughter?
It really is. So she was the baby. She was the newborn
Uh-huh.
when the first issue of Utah Valley magazine came out. And so she grew up coming with me to events and delivering magazines and seeing me edit at the kitchen table. And then she pursued a degree in public relations
Hmm.
and writing. And she's really fun. She's really creative. She's also a performer. So she brings that flair to our events when she helps MC and things. She's really good at the mic. And I am really, really proud of her.
Hmm.
We look a little bit alike, and so it's fun for her to be my plus one at different
Yeah.
events, and it's been fun for me. It's actually been freeing for me as I've pursued a few other things lately, to know that she is there. So
Mm.
we held an event in March this year, a big launch event for the magazine, something I would never ever miss. My first grandbaby was due around that time, and I told my kids who live in Seattle, I'm like, I will come when the baby's born any day except this day. So don't have the baby this day, because I have this magazine party that I just want to be to. And
Uh-huh.
of course the baby came that day,
Hmm.
and I couldn't stand it. I wanted to be there with the
Hmm.
grandbaby. And so I did not attend that party. And Haley, my daughter, stepped up and emceed, and everybody said it was amazing. And she was so excited. And that day gave me more of a pass of like, I don't actually have to be there. That
Yeah.
is so amazing. And she got to step up. If I'd been there, she would have been assisting me.
Right.
Instead of me being gone, she got to rise. And so that ended up being great for both of us.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, one of the things that we think about a lot in terms of succession, and when you've got a really senior person, one of the biggest gifts you can give them is, you're at the top of that S curve. What if you jump to a new S curve, and that gives that person who's on their own curve that headroom to move up the curve? And that's a beautiful illustration of that happening.
Right. That's a perfect example
Mm.
of an S curve. Yeah.
Um, let's talk a little bit about losing. So you ran for state senator. You came
Yes.
through. You came in second place. How did you walk yourself mentally, emotionally through that experience of coming so close?
hmm So that also happened in 2020. That year was so
Wow, that is
formative.
quite a year.
Yes. So I got a call from the recently elected lieutenant governor. She started just calling me multiple times in a day when I was like busy, and so I was so interested in why she was calling. She was calling to say, "Hey, we are going to hire your state senator in your district. We're going to hire this person full time. Leaves this opening, and there's going to be this special election. We're going to pick a new state senator in the next 3 weeks, and I think you should jump in. I'll support you." And I had to decide in 3 days.
Wow.
And I'm not the quickest decision maker. I'm kind of analytical. I like all the information,
Mhm.
but I only had 3 days. So I was just like, trying to analyze it. I wasn't feeling totally my best in any way. Health, I had gone through the cancer journey, was doing pretty good, but still coming out of that. And our business was still recovering from COVID and all that. It didn't seem like perfect timing, but in another way, it did feel like good timing because it was going to be a short election cycle. I'd
Mhm.
always been interested in politics, but this running for a year and having to raise all the money, none of that seemed fun to me. And this was a small scale of that. And so the morning I had to decide, I had to file by 8 a.m. I still hadn't fully decided. So I got up and went on a walk, like we were talking about the trail earlier. I walked about 3 miles in the dark. And the feeling that I came to on that walk was, this isn't just about the outcome.
Mm.
Like there's no way to guarantee if I will win this or not, but what if this is not just about the outcome? What if it's also about the process? And that feeling made me feel like, I can do this. I do a lot of things for the experience. So if that's all this is, I'm down for that. And so I decided to jump in and I filed, and there were 6 people who ran. And it was a short election cycle. We did one debate, but it was virtual.
Mhm.
And I called as many of the delegates as I could. There were 300 delegates in our district,
Mhm.
and so had a lot of phone conversations, sent out mailers, did a lot in 3 weeks, raised enough money to do what I needed to do. And then through this process, I started to really want to win because
Of course.
because I'm a competitive person. Why would
Right,
I put
right,
time in this if I
right.
didn't win? And I was getting some good feedback of like, wow, I think you might win. There was a strong candidate in there who was already in office in another office, and it was well known. And anyway, so we ran, and then the night of the election was ranked choice voting, and so it came down to me and this other guy, and then he won, and I came in second. And I did have what I was kind of like, gosh dang it, like I really, really wanted to win. And so then it was processing this again. And then I remembered that thought of like, this wasn't just about the outcome, right? This was also about the experience. And look at what I learned. Look at the people I met. Look at what I learned. I gained a lot of interest and respect and understanding for the political process. Even that small experience of the process of needing to raise a little bit of money and people giving me money and then me feeling a little bit beholden to them, it was just all of it was very interesting.
Mm.
Interesting thoughts and emotions tied into it. And also, calling all these people and wanting to give them the answers they want to hear, feeling that pressure of, okay, I know they want me to say this, but is it what I really think?
Oof.
And just doing
Oof.
that dance. So it was really instructive. And, in the end, I'm so glad that I ran. My son sent me a text the next day and said, Mom, it was so interesting watching you do this and watching you fail essentially. And then you were fine. Like you still held your head up high, and it showed me that I could do things that I might not succeed at, but
Wow.
that I could do that. And that was cool to
That
hear that.
alone is worth it, right?
I know.
That alone.
Yeah. And honestly, I think I thought maybe losing would hurt my confidence, but it actually, the whole process built my confidence
Mhm.
because I did realize I did something super hard and
Mhm.
I gained experience, and I have every reason to hold my head up high.
Yeah.
Shortly after that, the governor appointed me to the board of trustees at Utah Valley University, which I think
Mhm.
was part of that, people seeing me in a different light, seeing
Mm.
me in that. He's appointed me. I'm also on the committee for our fourth district. Whenever we have judges that need to be hired in the fourth district of the state of Utah, I'm part of the committee that they go through to be selected. We interview them and then send some names to the governor. So there's things that came from that experience that might not have happened otherwise.
Mm.
And so it was net positive. Will I run for office again? Maybe. I
That's a
I'm not saying
big maybe.
100% no. I'm not saying 100% no. It'd have to be the right timing and right
Yeah,
opportunity. I have a lot going on, and politics is difficult.
yeah.
The minute you put an R or a D behind your name, you lose friends, and I wish it
Mhm,
wasn't that way.
mm,
So it's a maybe. I get asked about it fairly regularly,
mhm,
and I always encourage other people to run for office.
mhm,
So
mhm.
maybe,
I
maybe,
love that. Big maybe. All
yeah.
right, so let's talk about, you alluded earlier, to, disrupting yourself again. So you've got this magazine. You've got an heir apparent. You are absolutely at the top of your S curve from a magazine publishing standpoint. So you ran for office, but from a professional standpoint, what are some ways that you're disrupting yourself right now?
Okay, so a couple of years ago, I started to feel again like this, ooh, new horizons are coming, and a scripture jumped off the page at me from John 15:2, which basically said, if something isn't bearing fruit, get rid of it. If it bears fruit, prune it so you can bear more fruit. And it felt like it was for me. I felt like I am doing some things that don't bear fruit, and maybe I do need to prune my life so I can bear more fruit. It felt very applicable to my career, and so I started being open to change at that point, and other things just started enlightening me that direction as well. And so an opportunity came up about little less than a year ago to run a commercial real estate company here in Utah, which is, the name of it is Colliers. It's a global company, and then in Utah it has 4 offices, and it's the biggest by far commercial real estate firm here that works with the church on temple site selection. It works with the governor's office on bringing companies in. It's very involved in economic development. So I got approached about coming to lead this company, and it was initially a no. That doesn't sound creative enough to me. That doesn't sound like a fit for me. But over the next several months, I started really looking at it, and I was feeling a little burned out. As far as that S curve, I was at the top, feeling a little Groundhog's Day. The
Mhm.
challenge in my magazine company isn't quite there anymore. In fact, in some ways I was even getting worse, because I was like,
Mhm.
I'll write this tomorrow right before it goes to the printer, instead of being passionate about it for weeks and months. So I started seeing this as a chance to really learn and grow. It's about 200 employees, a lot more scale financially that I'd be managing, and I started to see it as an opportunity to really challenge myself. But I still didn't make the decision lightly. I flew to LA a couple times, met with different people there, met with others in this industry, and I was getting a mix of feedback. You should totally do it. Oh, you should not do that. And you wouldn't like it. Oh, you would love it. And then I started to realize I've got to stop talking to people. I just need to decide. It's not like I'm taking a vote from everyone I know and then I'll go with the winning vote. Like, I just need, it's helpful information, but then
Uh-huh.
I get to decide. So then I kind of closed out all the other voices and just really tried to dig deep. And then about 7 months into the process, over one weekend, I was like, I think I would be really dumb not to do this. This is such a chance for me as a woman and as a business leader to have this opportunity to sit in this seat at this level in this state that I love and be part of economic development, which I feel like as a journalist I have been,
Mhm.
by highlighting and growing and celebrating and supporting all of the entrepreneurs and businesses and people of our state. So this is economic development, but in a different, more direct way. And I decided I'm going to do this. So at age 49, I took on this whole new industry and this whole new job. I found myself pulling books off the shelf, including yours, that had been kind of just sitting there for a while because I
Mhm.
was in autopilot. But now I'm like, okay, I've got to create a culture here. Now, how do you do that again? Like all the
Yeah.
things that I did in the past that now I'm doing in a new way, different way, with different technological tools. And it's been really refreshing and exciting to take on something new.
It's
It
amazing.
bring Yeah, it really has been exciting. And I also have found it's more similar than I expected.
Mm,
So
mhm.
I have commission-based brokers, and I have a staff that produces the product, the marketing, which is exactly what my publishing company is as well. So it's
Mhm.
actually a lot of the same
Mhm.
personality types, that are here. And I'm bringing a lot of my same creativity. At first, I didn't know this would be a creative job, and that was one of my concerns. But I just bring my own creativity to it in the way that I communicate and in the way that I approach things. And so I am able to be myself and hopefully my best self. And it's only been 4 months, so I'm still doing a lot of things for the first time in this role. The first time I'm working through this particular issue or facing this challenge. And so I feel really stretched. It's a period of growth that I'm grateful for.
Mm.
And will I be here the rest of my career? I don't know. Maybe not. But I'm enjoying it, and I feel like I'm making an impact, and the people here seem to appreciate my style. And I didn't feel like I had to really change to do this. I could just come and be me and bring my perspective and my background, even though it wasn't in this particular industry. It is applicable because it's people and it's math.
Right.
That's
It's
what it comes
people,
down
it's
to.
math, it's a geographic region that so there's lots
Yes.
of really great transferable skill opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so this is your big thing that you're doing right now. Are there any other, I'm just going to throw it out there, any other big dreams that are kind of waiting in the wings that you want? This is a lot. So you may say, "No, Whitney, this is plenty." But is there anything else that's just kind of out there that you're that's percolating?
I think I will be sad if I don't write a book at some point in
Okay.
this life. So
Okay.
I've sketched out a few outlines of things. It
Mhm.
would be probably a business book.
Yep.
Yeah, and so I'd like that. It could marry my love of creativity and writing with what I've learned in business.
Do it. You have
So
to do it.
I'd love to do that at some
Yeah,
point.
for sure.
And just I think everything I do will be tied together with community and business
Yeah.
in some
Yeah.
form or fashion.
Mm. All right. So, final couple of questions. What has been useful for you in this conversation? And just to give you a little bit of context, it's probably not anything that you said or that I said. It may be an idea or just something that occurred to you. So, in the course of this conversation, what was useful?
I think the idea of the reframe
Mm.
was really helpful for me, and to see that I've reframed multiple times,
Mm.
starting young, reframing my initial dream of maybe being a broadcast journalist, and then reframing that, and then motherhood reframed again, and then reframing what a media company looks like once social media is a thing, and then reframing now. I think I've done that more than I've realized.
Mhm.
I think that's been more of a pattern.
Mm.
And that's been an interesting thing from the outside. People, when I made this leap, it was confusing to some people because they're like, wait, what?
Not at all.
Commercial real estate? But when you look at it from my perspective and with this conversation in mind, it actually makes a lot of sense. And it's more similar and it's more sequitur than it maybe
Mhm.
appears to the
Mhm.
outside.
Mhm. So good. Okay, any final thoughts? Any wrapping things up with the bow, as you said?
As I look back at my life, I feel like individuals and individual moments have made such an impact.
Mhm.
And so I want to be sure that I'm doing that for others. It's so easy to get caught up in my inbox, which is enormous, and my calendar, which is full, not to take those moments. Because when I look back, it was very simple 30-second moments at times that made an impact.
Mm.
And so I think sometimes I think, oh, I don't have time to like go to lunch for 2 hours with that person, but
Yeah.
maybe a quick text or something would also make an impact.
Yeah. Mm.
So I think just looking back and realizing that small things mattered to me, and I want to be sure that I'm creating some small moments and love and lift for other people.
Oh, Jeanette, thank you. This was so fun.
Thank you. I always love chatting with you.